we'll bring in our good friend Johnny Mack, who was the first credited with knocking down the NBA's first three-pointer?
Oh, that's a good one. Now I'm embarrassed. I don't know that one. I should know that, Rich. I should know that, but I don't.
You don't know? I'll give you a hint. He was a player and then turned around.
I was going to guess he was a player.
Let me finish.
Go ahead.
And turn around. He was a player that eventually became a head coach. Obscure player.
So we're talking 1980. Boy, you're putting me on the spot. I got nothing for you. I apologize. I'm too COVID riddled from the NFL.
That would be Chris Ford.
Chris Ford, Sixers coach too, as well, for a very short time.
That's right. Back in a win against the...
More of a Celtics guy,
there you go. Thank you. Boston Celtics against the Rockets, 114-106. Yeah, so how about that? Beckham playing last night, and then we learned today he's got COVID-19. I mean, I trying to refresh to see all these players. I don't want to say worst case scenario for the league, but this is something that they certainly wanted to avoid.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think we're at 67 something in that range, 60-something. Yep. I shouldn't say that officially, but over the past few days, which obviously is far more than even last year at any point. So something's going on, and I was texting with one player tested positive, and he's asymptomatic, and he's not happy that he's going to. And you think about it from a competitive advantage standpoint, disadvantage standpoint, Rich. This last month of the season, and it seems like everybody's involved. Everybody's got a chance. I mean, this is gonna throw everything into upheaval. Everybody's waiting for the transaction wire in the afternoon to see the other shoe drop if the wrong player gets on the COVID list. And you know what nobody asked, Rich? How is so-and-so doing? How is so-and-so doing? How is Rich Q doing?
Nobody cares.
Nobody asks that question because they know they're stinking fine.
Yeah, of course.
Something has got to change here in the way we're handling all of this. Just saying.
No, listen, I agree. I mean, you've got Jones with the Chiefs. You got 8 with the Browns. You had a couple of Ravens players. The Giants had to deal with it. I mean, it goes down. The list goes on and on and on. And you're right. It's coming at an inopportune time. And you mentioned, from a competitive standpoint, competitive edge standpoint, how about some of these injuries? I mean, my goodness. You go around the league. I mean, it was scary to watch, right? I'm watching last night. Stafford getting a little banged up. Jackson getting banged up. Hopkins, Connor getting banged up. Jones he should be shut down for the rest of the year with the Giants. But let's kind of start with what transpired over the weekend, because I want to actually take it a couple different avenues with you during this segment. So let's just start with the games on the field, for instance. Thursday night, which we loved the over in that game, I feel as though not a lot of people are talking about, or maybe I'm missing it, but you look at a very good wide receiver in Claypool, and yet late in the game, what does he do? He catches the ball, he does the theatrics, the ball rolls around, they lose 3, 4, 5 seconds. I mean, to me, if you're the Steelers, you've got some talent there, but it seems as though Roethlisberger's coming to an end, Tomlin's getting frustrated, and then you got a very talented wide receiver in Claypool. If you're Tomlin, how do you reel this guy in and say, look, you got to understand, man, time, situation, and not do that kind of nonsense?
Well, I mean, all you can do is impress that on him. And, coaches always talk situational football. You have to be aware. And, it's perfectly fine to criticize the kid. It was a mistake in a big situation. He deserves all the criticism in the world. But I do think people forget that he made 2 absolutely monster catches in that game to put them in that position.
No doubt.
And I think they forget that part of it. And, look, people get excited. It's a very emotional game. And this tightrope they want these guys to walk at times is just unrealistic. So, look, it is a big spot. They had a chance to have the biggest comeback in regular season history. He made a big mistake that cost them another play, maybe 2 plays. But again, they're not even in that position if it's not for Chase Claypool.
No,
so
fair point.
I think too many people forget that second point and harp on the first point instead of saying, he made a mistake.
Yeah.
Still a really good player, still a really impactful player for the Steelers. And I'm sure that's how Mike Tomlin is handling it. You point it out. You try to correct it. Hopefully he learns from it. Now, if he continues to do similar things down the road, then you have a different discussion. But, it's like everybody erased the two, and they were phenomenal catches,
No
Rich,
doubt.
if
No
you
doubt.
saw the game.
Yeah,
Unbelievable catches.
Yeah. I mean, I woke back up once I knew that the over was it's a done deal. I'm not going to lie. But anyway, moving along. All right, how about the Ravens? 2 straight losses, albeit both on the road to the Steelers and the Browns. They got the Packers, Cincy, the Rams coming up, and then they close with the Steelers. Now, you got a banged-up Lamar Jackson. I'm curious to get your thoughts on both these quarterbacks from Sunday's game, Lamar Jackson and Baker Mayfield. Do you think those 2 quarterbacks are in their respective teams' future plans?
Well, I certainly think Lamar is. I don't know about Baker Mayfield. There's talk about him and the coach already being at odds, and Kevin Stefanski scaling things back. And anytime you start to talk about head coach versus quarterback, that's not a good situation. Look, we know Lamar Jackson, how explosive he is, but he's also a very unique player, very similar to Jalen Hurts, but better than Jalen Hurts from the perspective that you have to build the offense a certain way, but he's got sort of the transcendent ability to make you want to do that. And I think Baltimore has already went all in on that aspect of it. Now, the problem you have is, well, here we are, entering the playoff run, and he's banged up, and that's, when you play that style, you're going to get banged up. That's just the reality of the situation. And I know Joe Banner got in a lot of trouble on Twitter for pointing that out because we know where we are in the society.
Yep.
And everybody wants to point out that, everybody gets banged up at times, and that's true. I mean, in the NFL, if you play it long enough, you're going to get hurt. And people say Tom Brady, lost the season to the torn ACL.
Right.
They're 100% correct. He's also going to win MVP at 44.
That's crazy.
So, come on, stop being disingenuous. There's less likelihood of having significant injuries again and again, playing the game a certain way. And if you don't want to acknowledge that, you're lying to yourself, or you're being you're being a troll.
Yeah.
We all know it. And as I said, the guy's now he's an outlier. We all know that, Tom Brady, in his success. But you have plenty of other people to look at, whether it's Phillip Rivers, whether it's Ben Roethlisberger, whether it was Drew Brees, whether it was Peyton Manning, playing late into their 30s, early 40s at a very, very high level. You're not going to see Lamar Jackson be able to do that.
No.
So you trade the shelf life for a shorter shelf life, and you try to get over the top, understanding you're not going to have that shelf life, so to speak, that certain quarterbacks will give you.
Is Garoppolo playing himself in line to actually get another year in San Francisco with this late push?
I don't think so. One, the coach doesn't want him. The coach, going back to their Super Bowl run, the coach didn't want him. They drafted Trey Lance for a reason. He's obviously the future of the franchise, and they're being very patient, and they're starting to win games. But, the 49ers are what the 49ers were before. They have a great running scheme. They're starting to do that with their offensive line. Deebo Samuel's one of the more unique playmakers in the league. He's half running back, half receiver. And Jimmy's a game manager, and they want more than that. It's very, very similar to the Jim Harbaugh 49ers when they had Alex Smith, and then they put Colin Kaepernick in. And everybody, if you remember when Alex Smith got hurt, well, he was just winning games.
Yep.
Got hurt. He said, let's try Kaepernick. And he put more explosiveness to the offense, and they made the run to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I think they're in a very similar situation with Jimmy Garoppolo and the fact that they're looking for more of a playmaker at the game's most important position, and they drafted Trey Lance to be that.
Cowboys, again, you stopped the bleeding a little bit because that could have been a disastrous loss to Washington. You look at Washington, you felt their defense was actually playing better in spite of some of their injuries, and then you look at their quarterback getting banged up. But I'm more concerned if I was a Cowboys fan with Prescott. I mean, you'll hear the national pundits just say, well, it's a slump. Well, really? I mean, are we talking about a quarterback that maybe is not 100% healthy, or is this a quarterback that, I honestly can't figure it out. And I watch a lot of their games. I mean, I go back, and his decision-making has just, over the last month of the season, some really bad picks, man, really bad picks. And I'm just wondering, is this something that it is a slump per se over the last month where they've won 2 out of 4? They're 2-2 in essence over the last month. Or is this cause for concern as the Cowboys get ready to close out the season in a couple weeks?
Well, I think they have time to figure it out. They have a month. Obviously, they're going to win the division.
Yeah.
So they're probably not going to be in line for the number 1 seed. So they're going to be. They understand they're going to be in the playoffs, and you kind of maneuver it. You want them to make better decisions. That interception that let Washington back in that game was just awful. And you saw that. That was kind of a theme. You saw all the games. Pittsburgh coming back on Minnesota, you mentioned. Buffalo came back on Tampa Bay. Cincinnati came back on San Francisco. Washington came back on Dallas. From these big deficits, and there's probably a couple other games I'm missing. That seemed to be the theme of the NFL this week. And when that happens, you got to have mistakes from the offense and turnovers to allow those teams back in games. And that's pretty much what happened in each of those different games as teams made the run, and they all essentially lost. It was like an NBA team down 30, and they expend so much energy to get back in the game, and they ultimately lose it at the end.
Sure.
But when your quarterback, so go back to the Thursday night game, the interception there, if you remember, was, I think, Osborne. It was a bad route.
It was a bad route. It was, no doubt.
It was a terrible route. The quarterback didn't make the bad decision. The receiver hung him out to dry. In the case of Prescott, it's a bad pick. Had nothing to do with it. It was a bad decision from the quarterback. So that concerns you a little bit, and you certainly want to get them. You certainly want to get them back in a positive direction with more confidence because, man, I got to tell you, Rich, when the Cowboys are talented. They are a talented team. And all of a sudden, everybody's talking about Micah Parsons. Now, he might get suspended tomorrow, again, for the 75th time. But all of a sudden, Randy Gregory is turned into a monster on that defensive line. And DeMarcus Lawrence is back. You have Micah Parsons and Trayvon Diggs. And the receivers, they better hope. The rest of the NFL better hope that Prescott stays in the slump.
Yeah, it's a great point you bring up. Gregory has come on big time already with 6 or 7 sacks, and we know about the defense. You mentioned that game against Washington. Washington obviously has the Eagles this week, or I should say the Eagles and Washington football team do battle. I know Eagles favored in this one, and I'm just, I think about this, right? keep doing what has worked for you. And if that's the Philadelphia Eagles, go out, establish the run, try to dominate the line of scrimmage. That line's now dropped to 4.5. You're at home. We know you don't fare very well at home. We also know that typically, even when Washington has been a bad football team, there's always this kind of split. You know, they'll split the game. They rarely sweep them. Even when they were good and Washington stinks. So if you're an Eagles fan right now, bad loss against the Giants, you come back, you wax the Jets. You know, the confidence level, this late season push right now, Washington, the Giants, Washington, the Cowboys, where are you at with this Eagles team going into Sunday's game against Washington?
Well, the Cowboys put Washington on a tee for them. They beat up Washington. They might have let them back in the game, but you look at, obviously, Taylor Heineke's already a backup. People forget. You know, Ryan Fitzpatrick was supposed to be the quarterback of that team. Had to leave with the knee injury, the elbow injury. Now he's probably going to play, but he's going to be banged up. Obviously, they lost their center, Tyler Larson, who's a backup center, to a torn Achilles. Terry McLaurin's in the concussion protocol. He's their only playmaker, really, on the offensive side of the football. Remember, Logan Thomas tore his ACL. He's out for the season. They do have Antonio Gibson. But you get the point. They are a really, really banged-up team. And, oh, by the way, they have 9 people on the COVID list, including Jonathan Allen.
Major issue.
And Chase Young is already on IR. As we know, Montez Sweat, who knows if he's going to be back. He had been out with a broken jaw. He was on the COVID list. I think he could come off Saturday, so we'll have to see how that goes. I mean, if the Eagles don't win this game, they don't deserve to make the playoffs.
I agree.
And you mentioned that Giants game. Ultimately, that game might haunt the Eagles. That might be the one. But, you know, all those prediction models, 538, New York Times, you know, if the Eagles lose that game, if they win it, their playoff chances go up to over 50%. If they lose it, it dips down to 11%. So, in theory, it's not a literal must-win game, but it's a figurative one. And if they don't win this game, they're not going to make the playoffs. And if they don't win this game, they don't deserve to make the playoffs because that team is ripe for the picking.
Yeah, you can give the knockout blow. The knockout blow, it's right there. What did you make of the officiating late in the Buffalo and Tampa Bay game?
I don't. You know, to me, officiating, I can't stand social media when they complain about the officials. Now, there are certain things. Look, I say it all the time. The league is over-legislated. They're overbearing at times. But I think most fans don't understand. You don't really have a problem with officials. You have a problem with the rules and with the legislation itself. And whether it's the taunting rule or something of that nature. As far as pass interferences and things like that, I always go to Jonathan Gannon. It's sort of baked in. You know, you're going to get some good ones, you're going to get some bad ones.
Right.
I don't know what else to say.
Okay.
So as a coach in this league, you say, tell me the down and distance, let's go at it. You either overcome it or you don't. As for people that say, oh, they're, you know, Tom Brady and they're trying to do this for the Buccaneers, I think coming into that week, Rich, nobody had a bigger disparity of penalty yards for and against than Tampa Bay in a negative way. So that's just nonsense.
It's
a bad call is a bad call in one instance or one circumstance. But, I mean, that's where we are with the game. So I don't get too upset about officials. I never do.
All right, fair point. 2 more before I let you get out of here. By the way, Washington just placed Fuller and Settle on the reserve COVID-19 list. So, as you mentioned, the hits just...
That's 11. That's 11.
Yeah, and the Rams added 2 more as well, Jordan Fuller and Tyler Hall. So, wow. I mean, that's 6.
Yeah, I think the number, it just came across on my phone. The total was 29 today. 36 yesterday. Did you see any Eagles while I'm on the phone?
Bernard, Rams, Bears, Cardinals, Rams, Browns, Chiefs, Dolphins. Oh, my. No, nothing yet with the Philadelphia
Good for the Eagles.
Oh, well, hey, how about this? If you're a Giants fan, not a surprise. Tony's on the reserve COVID-19 list. I mean, that guy can't even get on the field. I don't even want to get into that. Oh, Quaz Watkins. Well, that was yesterday. You already
he was yesterday. Quaz was yesterday. But I mean, it's getting bad.
It's not good.
You know, the NFL insists that there has been no evidence of transmission on field. They've insisted this for since last year. Now the Rams just got a bunch today, and obviously they played last night. So, you know, all of this is fluid. But I got to tell you, man, as I said before, players are frustrated. Players are frustrated because, you know, think about it. Guys have played through, you know, one of the most famous NBA games in history is Michael Jordan, the flu game, right? Guys have played through a lot of things. And then you have guys now who feel completely fine.
I know.
And they're told they can't play.
I know.
Something's got to give here.
No, you're right. It does. I saw the tweet from Ian Rappaport, 29 players tested positive, almost high risk, close contact. Hey, real quick, I know we're up against it before I let you get out of here. I watched that game last night, and, you know, I'm a huge Stafford fan, and I think Brady's going to win the MVP. I just want to throw out Cooper Kupp because I always have this debate with my buddies on our text or our thread. I mean, his numbers, he's pretty much close to the Triple Crown here when it comes to receiving. I mean, he's a phenomenal player. Let's just say Brady, Rodgers have a down year. Can you see a wide receiver winning an MVP?
Well, you know, a wide receiver won the Heisman. Nobody thought it. We just asked Devontae Smith about that, and he admitted, look, at the college level, it's really difficult for a receiver to win that. He mentioned, well, number one, you got to have a quarterback who's having a great year because you have to have a vehicle to get you the football. Same thing with the MVP race, and you mentioned Stafford. And obviously, Devontae did it at Alabama with Mac Jones, and he was a finalist for the Heisman last year as well. So you need the quarterback to have a good year. So it's really difficult. It's a quarterback award, just like the Heisman is typically a quarterback award at this stage as well at the college level. But it can happen. It would definitely be an outlier. But we saw Adrian Peterson win at running back in an era where running backs shouldn't win it. So it can happen, but it's going to be exceedingly rare.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I mean, even on Jerry Rice's best great seasons, right, wasn't even talked about. So that kind of tells you something. But then again, he also had Montana Thrones, who was arguably at the time the greatest quarterback. So it's still, he's having a phenomenal year as Cooper Kupp. And, of course, he is John McMullen. Follow him on Twitter, at JF McMullen, Eagles Insider, SI Now, Philly Voice, Jacob Media, Birds 365 Show, 6 ABC, my God, Philly Mag, and, of course, Football on the 20s every Tuesday with me right here on AM 1490, Sports Betting Radio. Johnny Mac, I appreciate you, pal.
All right, thanks, Rich. Appreciate it.
You got it. Be well, be safe. Enjoy the game on Sunday. John McMullen. Always checking in on the AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio hotline. Quick timeout, Sports Flash Time.